From the campaign trail to Capitol Hill, buckle up because the Hill is rewinding the politics, events, and power players that have shaped our national headlines.
The Justice Department just unredacted more names tied to Jeffrey Epstein after pressure from lawmakers. Republican Congressman Tom Massey and Democratic Congressman Ro Khanna reviewed the full documents without any redactions, and now they are very critical of some of the redactions that were made. The two lawmakers say they spotted at least 6 names of people who are likely incriminated and were likely protected by being redacted. Deputy Attorney General Todd Blanche said on Monday night that the DOJ redacted all non-victim names, arguing the DOJ is committed to transparency. Several lawmakers were given the chance to view the unredacted copies of the files tied to Jeffrey Epstein this week. Republican Senator Cynthia Lummis is one of those lawmakers and has totally changed her tune after viewing the files. Lummis told a journalist that she now understands what the big deal is. She told reporter Pablo Manriquez that her initial reaction was, "I don't care, I don't know what the big deal is. But now I see what the big deal is, and it was worth investigations." She also noted, quote, "The 9-year-old victims, wow." I'm Kate Martell, and I write the Hill's 1230 Report newsletter. For more of today's news, please go check it out. You can find it at thehill.com.
Good morning and welcome to Rising. We have another great show for you today. Happy Monday and happy belated Valentine's Day. Do a little heart there.
Love Day. What do you do to celebrate Love Weekend?
You know, typical dinner, date, etc. How about you?
Same thing, but it's different when you have a kid. You gotta she thinks it's all of our Valentine's Day. So
oh, well, that's nice.
It's cute, but it's also like the romantic thing, probably.
Well, the thing I'm feeling most romantic about is this increased warm weather, which has finally gotten rid of, not all of it, but most of the snow we've been dealing with.
No longer suffering in D.C., so thank God for that. Coming up on Rising, former President Barack Obama sat down for an interview over the weekend where he discussed aliens. I know you saw it, President Trump's immigration enforcement, and he even suggested that Democrats should shift their strategy on homelessness.
Plus, Secretary of State Marco Rubio delivered a speech at the Munich Security Conference that has since gone viral. In it, he said that Europe and the U.S., quote, belong together.
And President Trump railed at comedian Bill Maher in a very lengthy Truth Social post, calling the dinner the two shared a, quote, total waste of time. But first, Robbie, since that's not on your radar, what else is on your radar?
Wait, you will for this one. Frankly, I didn't expect to be proven right this quickly, but here we are. Remember just 2 weeks ago when I warned that releasing all of the Epstein files, including not just emails, but also uncorroborated reports and investigative documents, was an unprecedented course of action that could end up exposing innocent people to humiliation and retaliation? Well, guess what? We learned on Friday that 4 of those 6 names uttered by Representative Ro Khanna on the House floor last week, the names of the alleged Epstein co-conspirators whom Representative Thomas Massey said were likely incriminated, are just 4 random people. They have nothing whatsoever to do with Epstein. How is that possible? Let me explain. As part of their investigation, law enforcement with the Southern District of New York assembled a photo lineup of potential suspects. If you watch police procedurals on television, you probably know how this goes. A witness is given a bunch of photos. Only one of them is the suspect, and the investigators see if the witness identifies the correct one. The other photos depict people who have nothing to do with the crime. And that was the case here, as Khanna himself now concedes. The congressman writes on X, "I appreciate reporting confirming today that Salvatore Nuara, Zarab Michelazzi, Leonid Lenov, and Nicola Caputo were just part of a photo lineup and are not connected to Epstein's crimes. I wish DOJ had provided that explanation earlier instead of redacting and then unredacting their names. They have failed to protect survivors, created confusion for innocent men, and have protected rich and powerful abusers. We must have full transparency and the truth." In all fairness to the congressman, Massey did state previously that one reason those 4 names might have been redacted was specifically because they appeared in a police lineup.
And you see no reason why those men's names are redacted in these files?
No, unless they were in some random lineup. But this requires the DOJ to respond to it, just like they responded to my 2 tweets tonight about the Sultan, who had heretofore not been known, and about Lex Wessner, who is in the files listed as a co-conspirator on the file that they unredacted tonight.
Turns out he was right about that, but I think, given this possibility, it was unwise for Khanna to take to the House floor and smear, let's repeat, 4 random people as criminal co-conspirators in a global sex trafficking ring. By the way, this is exactly why it is not common to release investigative files of this nature, because they contain information investigators gathered for whatever reason that may have nothing to do with the case. It's why Representative Clay Higgins of Florida, I keep bringing him up, was the low no vote on the Epstein Files Transparency Act, and he was 1,000% correct when he said this: it abandons 250 years of criminal justice procedure in America. As written, this bill reveals and injures thousands of innocent people, witnesses, people who provided alibis, family members, etc. If enacted in its current form, this type of broad reveal of criminal investigative files released to a rabid media will absolutely result in innocent people being hurt. End quote. Higgins was right from the start. Now, I can't claim that I came to my senses that quickly, I admit it, but it looks like I got there a little bit quicker than some other folks. To all the people who've been screaming at me online that I'm just running cover for elite sexual abusers, or I don't care about victims, or I'm in league with Israeli intelligence, or whatever the ridiculous smear of the moment is, never too late to put down the pitchforks, folks. And look, Lindsay, I think a lot of what I warned about this case is coming true. Me and Clay Higgins.
You wanted 5 minutes to say I told you so?
Well, yeah, I did tell you so.
Bobby, fine. You have points. Just because you have an example of something doesn't mean that everything should be thrown in the trash otherwise. I think that Ro Khanna and Thomas Massie have, I believe, embarked on something.
I think they screwed up royally.
But I think that they embarked on something that they genuinely believe is worth spending the time on, and possibly for Massie risking his political career on. I think that they do think that there's a lot here. And in this particular case, because Ro Khanna went on the floor and announced these names, he thought that he had a smoking gun and he was incorrect. But the problem was the execution, not the transparency. So the Department of Justice could easily have explained why certain names were redacted over and over again, or at all, prior to handing him sloppy files that they say were turned into them in that way from the FBI and not with no explanation, and turning them over to Massie and Khanna. That's why people are so confused.
I'm not impugning Massie and Khanna's motivations. I know them both. We've had Khanna on the show before. I think they are generally people I like in government. It is not personal at all. I understand why they did what they did, but it was not wise they saw the unredacted files, and then within, 48 hours of that, earlier, they saw them, I think, over the weekend or on Monday, and then within 2 days or so, Khanna's on the House floor saying, here are 4 names. I mean, they could have waited.
That's what you called for. You want him he's saying he has a smoking gun. He was obviously misled.
And he was wrong.
Yes, he was wrong.
He was totally wrong. I mean, look, I could say something on television. I could say I have evidence that 4 people are complicit in, again, the most horrible crime. It's not, I didn't say not all the information adds up with their tax filings this year. They said criminally indicated in a global sex trafficking ring. Then, oops. No, they have absolutely nothing to do with it. That's why that's why this power should not be abused. A, the power to be immune from libel or defamation when you say things on the House floor, that shouldn't be abused. B, this is why we don't just release investigative files. This is why we've never done this before. For exactly the reason Clay Higgins says, is that it doesn't, the files contain information that police gathered that has nothing to do with Epstein.
Well, I think because there's a mistrust in government right now, and because people are asking for all these files, there's I think, legitimate argument about whether people
is this
are self-protecting.
addressing the mistrust? Is this reducing the mistrust?
Some of it is legitimate, like saying Lex Wessner is in there and really looking into that. And then other people are just catching a stray, which is, you're right, not right. They can sue.
Lex Wexner was already known.
Okay, but there's people that want to know how to connect the dots exactly here. There possibly could have been co-conspirators. The only reason why we don't fully know that is because we didn't have a chance to bring Epstein fully to justice in 2019 because of murky details about what happened and how he was killed. And so that's what we're told. But CBS released footage of some possible other person in the jail maybe going to his cell that was also in the Epstein files that was written but not told to the American public. So you can understand why people are concerned about what we're being told versus what the truth is.
Okay, but that was not the reason to release these files, was not to shed more light on the circumstances of Epstein's death itself. It was because there was a public perception and a claim by members of Congress and various talking heads and partisan people on both sides of the political spectrum that other powerful people, that Epstein had procured underage women to be sexually abused by other powerful people, and we didn't get justice in those cases. And for some reason, the victims can't tell us who they are. So we need the government, we need the investigative files where the police were recording information on whoever that was, and they had that information and didn't do anything with it, or there were settlements or whatever, and we need to know that information. And that has utterly, completely collapsed that idea.
Unlike, the reason why this is all connected, because unlike in 2008, there was not going to be a lenient plea deal available for Epstein. So in that case, he might have led to spilling out the beans on other names that might have been involved in this possible ring that you keep talking about.
Maybe.
Yes, but since we lost that access, obviously the person died, people still want answers. There are real people that have been involved in this that actually want answers that for whatever reason, I'm not victim shaming, are not coming forward and saying the names. And so Ro Khanna and Thomas Massie are taking on the noble task of trying to figure it out. But if the DOJ and FBI did their job well and provided Congress to oversee the proper information so that they can oversee well, then we wouldn't have all these questions and releasing inappropriate names.
Four random people got smeared as co-conspirators in a criminal sexual abuse scandal. My understanding is one of them already lost his job. They're all going to suffer massive consequences because of this. And I think it was shameful what has been done to them, and they are owed an apology, and we should be rethinking some of this project. But that's my take.
Now, Secretary of State Marco Rubio striking a softer tone over the weekend in Munich, offering some reassurances to our allies in Europe. Why some here at home are skeptical of this new approach. We'll be right back to talk about it.
The Department of Justice says it has complied with Congress by releasing all required files related to the Jeffrey Epstein case. But there are no signs that the push for more public information is dying down, and there are major questions about the political fallout. Here to break it all down, Jesse Burns, senior editor here at The Hill. Hey, Jesse. So what do you make of this statement from over the weekend by the Department of Justice? They said they complied with the Epstein Transparency Act passed by Congress. It mandated the release of these Epstein files. And then the response from lawmakers really on both sides of the aisle that said, not enough.
Well, you're absolutely right, Drew, that the administration would like for this issue to be well behind it. They have spent months grappling with the fallout of not releasing all of the documents right away. Of course, they have faced bipartisan calls to do so. And really, if you just look at the magnitude of it, we're talking about more than 3 million documents. And what they released over the weekend was a list of more than 300 individuals who appear anywhere in the files, and they can be, and one of the big criticisms right now is that the administration hasn't distinguished between people who were very close to Jeffrey Epstein and who might have faced some legal scrutiny at some point from authorities, as well as people who had absolutely no connection to Epstein personally, but whose maybe name appeared in a news clip or somewhere else, and that was forwarded to Epstein's account. And so seriously, a lot of serious questions still being raised by bipartisan members.
Thomas Massie and Ro Khanna, the Democrat and Republican who've kind of been front and center in this push for information to be released, they say they want notes from charging decisions to be released. They want to know why others implicated with Jeffrey Epstein have not been actually charged with any crimes. Do you expect them to kind of continue this pressure on the Department of Justice?
Well, I think they definitely are going to continue. It remains to be seen if that's going to actually have any impact with the administration actually releasing any of this. There has been, I think, notably some movement. We've seen this pair, continue to press for names. They've read names on the House floor. They have posted on social media. And in response to some of the pressure, the administration has more clearly redacted certain documents that they have posted on the internet. The lawmakers raised concerns that they are not doing that across the board, that they are not being as transparent as possible, as the law that President Trump signed requires the DOJ to do. So I think you're going to see Massie and Khanna continue to lean into this, but notably, it's not just them. We do see other Republican lawmakers who are facing pressure from their own constituents to provide a reasoning for why the administration hasn't done it so far.
Another reason we may expect this story to stick around is the House Oversight Committee has some high-profile depositions coming up. Les Wexner, the billionaire businessman who was close to Jeffrey Epstein, is going to be deposed this week. Bill and Hillary Clinton are going to be deposed next week. I think just the work of the Oversight Committee would make it difficult for the administration to move on to another story, considering all that it has planned.
That's right. Wexner will be have faced testimony and be questioned on Wednesday of this week, and you are seeing lawmakers, really raise the question of, if the administration or the House Republicans rather are pressing forward with interviewing high-profile people like former President Bill Clinton. What precedent does that set for in the future? Should Democrats retake the House in November? Would they actually press to try to question President Trump himself at some point, someone who's also named in these documents, but for both individuals, no one has alleged any wrongdoing.
What do you make of the way that information has been released? You had Ro Khanna read the names of people that he said were likely implicated in Epstein's crimes on the House floor, come to find out some of them not actually involved in this case at all. You had people with varying levels of correspondence with Epstein being forced to resign their positions in business and government. Is this thirst for information perhaps leading to unintended consequences that are at times harming innocent people?
Well, first, let's understand that there have been real consequences for a number of the people who have actually been mentioned, not in the part of being charged, but rather facing public scrutiny. You've seen Kathy Remler, who's a former White House general counsel who had to step down from a top Wall Street firm in her role there. We've seen, the fallout surrounding Prince Andrew and a number of others who have, their close ties to Epstein have come out. Now, again, they have not been formally accused of any criminal activity, but just the mere presence of them in these documents over and over again has led to outcry. But in terms of the individuals who you mentioned, maybe haven't actually faced any kind of scrutiny, but they are mentioned in the files, I think you are going to see, the administration lean into that. That has been their rationale so far, that they are trying to only redact the names of victims. We've seen some individuals who we don't believe are victims just based on the information that we have that are also redacted. And so you're going to see some more pushback on the part of these lawmakers.
What about the politics of all this? I've seen some polling that shows young men specifically, people that are less politically engaged, really turning on Trump over the handling of the Epstein case. Is this a chink in the armor of President Trump that could cause him to perhaps loosen his grip on the Republican Party or potentially hurt the GOP in midterm elections?
Well, I don't think it rises quite to the level of, issues like the economy, affordability, which we understand long are the dominant issues heading into elections that really drive the narrative and drive people at the polling places. But you are seeing certain, it's reflected in polls, as you mentioned, where the administration's handling of this issue has not been treated favorably by a majority of Americans. And really, it is that handling of the Epstein files that has long been a real point of a weakness for this administration. They've caught a lot of flack, the Attorney General, the Deputy Attorney General, all the way down. And I think the White House understands that to some extent. They understand that because they've been trying to push forward and change the conversation away from this for so long. But you also see certain congressional Republicans like Nancy Mace saying that even these document releases over the weekend, it's not a complete picture of what the administration has. So I think you're going to continue to see consternation within the Republican Party over the Epstein files. Whether it makes an impact in November remains to be seen, but it certainly is not going to die down anytime soon.
All right, we'll leave it at that. Jesse Burns, thanks so much for your time.
Thank you.
Former Trump advisor Steve Bannon has come under fire for the new details coming out about his relationship with convicted sex offender Jeffrey Epstein. Now newly unearthed documents from the DOJ are showing more conversations that the two had over text.
In 2018, Bannon appeared to suggest that President Trump, who was then in his first term, should be removed from office via the 25th Amendment, which would have made Mike Pence the president. The context of their conversation is not totally clear, but in the exchange, Epstein appears to say of Trump, he really is borderline not sure what he may do. And Bannon replies to that with, I think it's beyond borderline, 25th Amendment.
Republicans and Trump allies are sounding the alarm, with Trump's former security advisor, Michael Flynn, arguing that Bannon should give testimony before Congress. He writes on X, quote, "The White House, or at least DOJ, needs to come out and say what they plan on doing with this information." I remember all the 25th Amendment talk back in the first term. It was really ugly. If Bannon and Epstein were behind it, Bannon needs to be brought in for questioning, and he needs to address this and all other expletive he was doing on behalf of Epstein.
And former Congresswoman Marjorie Taylor Greene added to that, saying, "I agree completely. Steve Bannon went to jail for Trump. I was there. But back on January 1st, 2019, after Dems took the House, he was texting with Epstein about the 25th Amendment. Also, there's no excuse for having such a friendly relationship with Epstein post-conviction, 2018, 2019, none."
Now, Bannon was the chief strategist for the White House when President Trump was first inaugurated in 2017, but he left that role after less than a year on the job.
A few months ago, he made headlines for claiming that there is a plan among Trump's team for him to run and win a third term as president in 2028, telling The Economist Trump's going to be president in 28. People ought to just get accommodated with that, but the 22nd Amendment does prohibit anyone from serving more than 2 terms. So, again, with the usual disclaimer that there's no evidence of any criminal behavior, I do think Bannon's associations with Epstein is in a category where I put a couple people that looks very highly questionable.
Is it the timing for you that he was so close to 2019, or what is it about the frequency? Because
And
this Hyatt guy that we talked about earlier was talking to him.
Okay, there's something different between taking an email that says, "Hey, can you get somebody a job," and saying, "Send a resume," is a little bit different than texting about political strategy with the guy at great length, relevant in a way to undermine Trump. It sounds like Bannon portrays himself as the ultimate Trump guy, more Trumpy than Trump. He was trying to have him ousted. What is this? Bannon is sloppy Steve, as Trump used to say, is trouble. Bannon is trouble. I think the honest brokers in MAGA know that he's really out for himself, and he's aligned with Trump if it serves his interests sometimes, not others. It was weird that he was pushing the Epstein stuff so much, given how close. This is closer than, again, just you emailed him once or he received an email from him. They were texting about strategy. That's political strategy. That's different. Again, it's still not criminal. I'm not saying he's a sex trafficker or that he could go to jail. No evidence of that. I just say it reflects badly on his political judgment, and thus I would not think we should still be listening to Steve in terms of what's best for America first, what's best for MAGA, what Trump should do. He should not be in the orbit of decision-making for the Trump movement. That's all. I think that's very clear based on the disclosures from the Epstein files.
So my personal judgments of Steve Bannon, who kept in touch with Epstein up until 2019 when he was already charged a second time, is that, the moral compass is not there. And so for me, that doesn't make sense, even past anybody who kept in touch with him right after 2008. Yeah. Maybe they were associates and didn't realize that he'd just gotten in trouble. But when you go all the way up to 2019, everyone knows what was going on. And so to take advice or give advice to Epstein, all in the name of some documentary, which we don't believe. I mean, I don't. So
they're scheming.
Yeah, exactly. It sounds like they're trying to come up with some grand plan.
And scheming against Trump, which should be relevant to MAGA people, because that's the highest crime there is scheming to undermine Trump. He was scheming to undermine Trump with, yes, a convicted sexual predator and shady financial guy. He was talking to him, conspiring to undermine Trump. That seems like reason enough to unperson him.
Another question is, why does Epstein want to get Trump so bad? What's the motivation? Why does he want to get Trump so bad?
I think he was a never Trumpy by then. I think he didn't like it.
Okay, that's one reason, but we'll put a pin in that. Epstein says...
He's a resistance figure leader.
No.
Yeah, he doesn't like... He's a conventional liberal. He loves to associate with Harvard and, fund academic projects, and he's a Harvard liberal at this point. He thinks Trump is evil and should be destroyed.
So back to Bannon, he wants to release the files until he's in them. So the fact that there was such an extreme push coming from Bannon.
I don't know what
I don't know what he thought was going to happen when you keep in touch that closely. I really don't get it. And so this is somebody, no matter how much you want to dismiss them at this point, or were deeply entangled with the MAGA movement, still have a lot of people that follow the MAGA movement following specifically his podcast and the things that he says. And maybe you can call it the fringes or however, but he still is considered a figure within the MAGA movement, no?
Yeah.
And even though his policies and a lot of things don't align, he pushes ideas forward that end up in the popular dialogue. So whether it's by other podcasters that make their way back to the president,
right.
he still
He's the leader of the most populist faction of MAGA. Him and Elon Musk hate each other because Elon, wants less government regulation. Steve Bannon on economics is basically a Marxist. He's socially conservative, and he has an isolationist foreign policy or a on foreign policy, I don't really have a problem with him. I agree with him on a lot of foreign policy. On economic issues, he's a Marxist. He wants big companies broken up. He supports every kind of labor protection and regulation. He is not in step with the libertarian side of MAGA. So
you have to ask: are the people that watch him specifically just saying they're there for entertainment, or is this somebody who actually influences some thought that's coming through your mind in regards to politics, in regards to a lot of things, even with the call for releasing the Epstein files? Because this is somebody that we know his intentions don't seem like they align with.
I think Bannon fashions himself as like he's the ultimate political operator, spy master, like Game of Thrones. Like he's a Varys or a Littlefinger. Like he would never get caught up in it, right? Because he's always got 8 other contingency plans. He's Otto von Bismarck. He's negotiating and scheming with everyone to further his interests. Like that's what he sees himself as. So I'm not sure it would occur to him that it would damage him if it got out his correspondence with Epstein, because he sees nothing wrong with scheming. He was probably like, yeah, he might have some reason. I was, against Trump for that month for some reason, but then I was back. Who knows? It's plans within plans, wheels within wheels. It doesn't make sense to anyone but him. I think, I don't know. That's just my reading of Bannon, is that's how he sees himself, as the ultimate, consummate, Machiavellian style Game of Thrones operator person who's talking to everyone and pushing this person and trying to knock down this person to serve some agenda he thinks is best.
And with all the investigations that have come through this administration, from Pam Bondi's doing to the president vocally going on social media saying people looked into, it would be interesting if we just skip over Steve Bannon knowing this new information, at least from Trump's purview, since he's decided to investigate so many other people.
Yeah, has Trump gone on a tirade against Bannon yet? Where's the answer?
I don't see any. And then you wonder, why is he nervous to come at Bannon? Same reason he's nervous to come at Epstein. To come at
Fox yet, so Trump isn't aware of it.
Elon Musk.
I think
Trump. Trump seems like he has a certain fear of Elon Musk and maybe Bannon, and I wonder why. And they both are in the Epstein files.
I think he's afraid of. He's called Steve Sloppy Steve. He's gone off on Steve Bannon in the past. He's never really gone off on Elon.
I know.
He likes Elon, and he would like Republicans to continue being funded by Elon. So he's more careful about how he addresses the Elon situation than any other person on the planet, which I think is telling about the level of importance Elon has to him. And I think he liked him.
Now, ESPN analyst Stephen A. Smith says he's seriously considering running for president in 2028. We'll look at his comments from a recent interview up next.
Tom Pritzker, who's a cousin of Illinois Governor J.B. Pritzker and executive chair of Hyatt Hotels, resigned from his position Monday over his apparent connection to Jeffrey Epstein.
So far, Pritzker has not been accused of any wrongdoing, but files released by the DOJ show he kept in close contact with Epstein for several years after the disgraced financier's 2008 plea deal. He's one of several businessmen named in the 3 million documents released so far by the Justice Department. In one email sent in 2018, Pritzker apparently helped facilitate travel to Asia for one of Epstein's partners, who told Pritzker they were trying to, quote, find a new girlfriend for Jeffrey. In another email in 2010, Epstein wrote to Pritzker, "The girl from Romania that you met at my house is currently living in London. Can we see if there's a starting position in any of the hotels?" To which he responded, "Have her send me a resume. I can have her interviewed. No idea if they are hiring." Pritzker has served as chair of Hyatt Hotels since 2004, but announced that he would not be seeking re-election. In May, writing to his company's board, quote, "Good stewardship also means protecting Hyatt, particularly in the context of my association with Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell, which I deeply regret. I exercised terrible judgment in maintaining contact with them, and there's no excuse for failing to distance myself sooner.
Pritzker's resignation comes as other names are surfacing from the Epstein files as well. CBS reports ambassador and Trump confidant Tom Barrack also kept in regular contact with Epstein for years. Meanwhile, Attorney General Pam Bondi released a list of 300 politicians and prominent people whose names appeared in the files. Some of those names include politicians like President Trump, the Obamas, Kamala Harris, Nancy Pelosi, and Hakeem Jeffries, billionaires, actors, artists, Mark Zuckerberg, Elon Musk, Woody Allen, Robert De Niro, Bono, Beyonce, basically everyone. It's important to note these inclusions don't imply direct contact with Epstein, nor does it mean they did anything wrong. But as more names are revealed, some appear to be seeing patterns of wealth and power. Representative Ro Khanna, who has championed the release of the files, writing on X, quote, "And you wonder why the Epstein class is going after me and Thomas Massie. Look at how many people we are exposing. Is anyone keeping a list of powerful people in the U.S. and around the world already being investigated and called out? Called out for what?"
Thomas Massie told your colleague at Reason in that video interview that he don't be surprised if he's like fearful. I'm paraphrasing, but fearful for his life because of some of the things that
being a drama queen.
I'm just telling you what someone who you usually champion said to your colleague. I'm just telling you.
I don't. None of these people are accused of any wrongdoing. Even the Pritzker cousin isn't accused of any wrongdoing either. Resigning over what?
Okay, let me tell you how private companies work, right? Which Hyatt is, right? They can not have somebody associated with them that decided to associate with somebody who is convicted of solicitation of prostitution of a minor specifically. They can say that you don't belong in our hotel group. And even if they ousted him and he respectfully said he's going to resign because he wanted to save face, he can go. It's okay. You decided, like you said, we're looking back with clear eyes and saying historically how we might have judged Jeffrey Epstein. But this man kept in touch with him through 2018. That's a decade after he was convicted of the things I just said, and 1 year away from being possibly convicted of sex trafficking with minors, which we didn't get to see fully seen through because he died. So this is your friend who's doing this behavior that you know because he was a criminal at the time that you kept associating with him.
Those emails that we just read are
the girl you met at my house in Asia, the girl from Romania you met at my house in London and wants a job.
And he said, and Pritzker said, well, have her send a resume, she can be interviewed. That's not an inappropriate thing.
Well, girls at Epstein's house who was convicted of solicitation of prostitution of a minor and getting them jobs does not look right. And then somebody should know that years after he's convicted of these crimes. So if he doesn't work somewhere, you always talk about how private companies, you don't like cancel culture. All right. So social media can do whatever it wants to do, but private companies can as well, like we always discuss. So if he was ousted or he made the big decision, like he made a big decision to keep in contact with Epstein, both of those have consequences, right? So he can leave. I don't understand why he needs to keep his job. People that don't have good moral fiber don't blend well with certain companies.
Can we be like realistic for a moment here? How many emails do you respond to in a given day? I must respond to like hundreds. To emails and direct messages on Facebook and Instagram and X and group chats and WhatsApp and emails and texts and literally hundreds of them a day. I have
any of them from
my creative work.
Felons? Any of your emails that you responded to?
How could you know the sex offender registry status of every person who sends me an email saying, "Hey, could you email this person, or would you interview, or would you put me in contact?" I said, "Yes, sure." I'm giving one-word responses to everyone because I'm getting a flood of messages every day, and I'm supposed to keep track of the entanglements of every single person. I've sent a pro forma response of "Sounds good, sure, no, yes, we're hiring, no, we're not." Like, this is unrealistic of people operating at this level.
He's been to the man's house. So you would know if your friends go from civilian to felon. Surely you would find out if they went through a whole trial. You're telling me you would not know that at all? You would be so oblivious to somebody whose house you've been to, spent time with people at his house as they discussed an email over a decade of a friendship?
Exchanged, responded to questions, queries from people who I say to myself, I don't quite remember who this is. I remember meeting them, but I don't remember who it is. And then later go, oh, that's that person.
Why are you so prone to making excuses for people that possibly...
I'm making excuses because there's There's nothing criminal and there's nothing wrong about any of this.
Your friend is a criminal.
This is a pure moral panic.
No, if your friend is a criminal and you're
Bondi has a list of 300 people. It's just a list of names in the phone book.
There are like some cartoons.
I could start reading.
Our team said SpongeBob.
Alan Ardverkson.
Yeah.
Boris.
And I think part of that is
but Johnson.
to try to
I'm
mock,
just going through the phone book in order.
Part of that is to try to mock
Boris
and diminish
Johnson
some of the
best
claims that actually are substantial here. There are people and victims that we have to remember that actually want real information released by Congress. I don't want to question why they want Congress to release it, why Thomas Massie or Ro Khanna have to be the leaders on this and not the victims. I just think that people actually want answers to understand how many administrations were involved in protecting Epstein and anyone else powerful that may have been exposed if we went through that trial in 2019, but we didn't get an opportunity to see who Epstein would have ratted on because he died. Okay, so there are still people that want answers. You're the only one who's trying to dismiss this. Some of it...
I'm the only one who's not susceptible to this pitchfork-wielding mob because I know it's BS. There's nothing to it.
No, I think that you're not being fair.
Show me a shred of evidence. Show me a shred of evidence that a single person other than Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell and that Brunel guy who also killed himself in prison, anyone other than them was sex trafficking underage girls. If you have a shred of evidence of that, it's time to present it. You don't have it, and neither does Ro Khanna, and nor does anyone, because it doesn't exist.
But people leave jobs every day for moral wrongdoings through the lens of the company.
I mean, you're right that the company can do whatever it wants.
So that's okay. He's not at Hyatt. Why are you so upset by this? It's certainly not your company. So why are you so upset by it? You could have kept somebody who kept in touch with a pedophile. But that's your company and your decision. So you hire him, Robbie. Hire him at Robbie's Consulting. Because Hyatt doesn't want him in there. And that's pretty obvious by him stepping down. And they gave him at least the dignity to say,
if I was running a company,
down.
I would not make hiring decisions based on who you might have responded to an email from a few times over the course of 20 years. I would now, if you were, if there was evidence you were a sex trafficker of kids, then I would not hire you, and I would in fact want you prosecuted. But there's no evidence of that involving any of these people, and that seems to me the relevant detail. But I'm going to keep, rowing up this creek without a paddle, I guess. Up next, the Department of Homeland Security has sent subpoenas to major tech companies seeking user data behind social media accounts that criticize the agency and track ISIS movements. Don't go anywhere.